Now, we will wage war against poor corporate governance. That's according to the Institute of Directors, Ghana. According to the president of the Institute, Roxanne Dogbegam, a draft bill of directors code of ethics has been submitted to Parliament for consideration. Speaking to Joy Business at the 4th Corporate Governance Excellence Awards organized by the Institute, Mr. Dogbegam said the bill, when passed, will give his outfit the legal backing to name and shame organizations and directors engaged in unethical practices in the industry.
IOD is resolved to wage war against poor corporate governance, and to do that we need to have the appropriate legislative backing, and that is why we are pushing the agenda to have the draft bill. Secondly, we also need a national corporate governance code that will be an overarching policy, to promote the culture of good corporate governance. Currently we have, various scattered codes. The banking sector has their code, SEC has their code, a lot of people have their codes. But we need one umbrella code, which we'll call the National Corporate Governance Code, which will be structured in a manner that promotes accountability, that promotes ethical culture, that will promote the appropriate controls in a manner that will, encompass all of the frameworks that we have currently, and which will make it easy for investors to have one reference point.
Well, the acting chief executive officer of the Public Procurement Authority, PPA, Frank Mante, says his outfit is working with the public to ensure transparency in the procurement processes. According to him, the PPA organizes training for the private sector to sensitize them on how to go about tenders in line with procurement activities. He was speaking at the 10th Public Procurement Authority Annual Public Forum. We have more in this report.
The Public Procurement Authority is seeking to partner the private sector on procurement processes as part of its vision of pushing for national development. At the 10th Public Procurement Authority Annual Public Forum, the PPA said it would sensitize the public sector on procurement processes for national development. Here's the acting chief executive officer of the Public Procurement Authority, Frank Mante.
Private sector, I would say, is an active partner in government procurement. This is because Ghana is not a socialist state. Ghana is a capitalist state. It means that the government cannot buy from itself. So the government obviously has to buy from the private sector. And so if government has to buy from the private sector, the private sector itself needs to be prepared to understand what it takes to partner government in public sector procurement. So PPA, specifically under Section 3 of our Procurement Act, we are mandated to build the capacity of the private sector. So in terms of how they respond to tenders that are published. For example, if a tender is published, and then the private sector person goes to buy the tender, they need to understand how to complete it. If they do not have that understanding, what is going to happen is that they will submit a tender that is incomplete. And once it's incomplete, during the evaluation process, that particular private sector person or firm will be dropped. And obviously they would have spent money buying the tender document. Okay, so PPA has always been cautious about helping to develop the capacities of this private sector, so that when they are taking part in government contracts, they clearly understand what they need to do.
Also, chairman of the oil and gas sector at the Association of Ghana Industries, Kwame Jantua, commended the PPA on the move.
PPA's annual forum to try as much as possible to get interactive with the people, to tell them what the PPA is actually doing, especially with regards to the law and how the law works with regards to procurement. And I think that is a good thing, because if you bring people in and people get to know the law better, it streamlines everything and makes things much more transparent and accountable. In terms of the AGI is a partner to the PPA in terms of we handle private sector, and private sector mostly are the ones who go in and do procurement on behalf of government. But we should note that the PPA handles more of government procurement than private sector procurement. So it's a thing that they work with the private companies to help procure on behalf of government.
The Public Procurement Authority is embarking on propelling the wheels of the private sector through sensitization on procurement processes to support the Ghana Beyond Aid agenda. James Ishan's report for Joy Business.
Now, the United Nations Global Network Ghana, after withering the year 2020, is now in a better position to become a premier network in the UN Global Compact initiative in Africa. According to the program's coordinator of the Global Compact, Tulukweku Lacroix, This seeks to sensitize businesses on the importance of sustainability in Ghana and also take full advantage of the African Continental Free Trade Area. That's to aid in achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. James Ashon comes through with this report.
United Nations Global Compact, which was revived in the year 2019, has been officially launched here in Ghana at the African Strategy and Launch themed the importance of sustainability in the decade of action, transforming businesses to become more resilient and competitive. They're basically looking at cushioning small-scale industries as well as other corporate firms, trying as much as possible to get them take full advantage of the African Continental Free Trade Area.
Us getting down to work, we want to have our outreach to companies. We want to get them involved. We want to open the Global Compact's doors to them. We want to let them know what opportunities are available to them, and to really demonstrate that sustainability is now one of the key ways a business can be successful today. It's not just an investment in CSR, it's actually an investment in the company itself. So one of the things that we're doing is that we're going to make strategic partnerships. We're going to find the associations, we're going to find the donor organizations, we're going to find even the businesses who understand the landscape and about how to reach out to the SMEs. We're going to look at their value chains.
Well, so this was a brainchild by the late General Secretary of the United Nations, Kofi Annan, who had these dreams to help these businesses, right from the SMEs to that of the corporate firms, to help the United Nations in achieving its SDGs by the year 2030. For Joy Business, James Ashon.
Now, the informal economy that is neither taxed nor monitored by any form of government is one that contributes to Ghana's economy largely. With pension plans, workers of the sector have little or no education with respect to pension plans. James Ashon once again features in this particular news piece, exploring all the angles regarding the informal sector and Ghana's pension regime.
80% of the workforce in the country is employed by the informal sector, but there's a sector that has been characterized by job insecurity, low wages. But most of these workers in the informal sector seem to have little or no idea about pensions plans. We'll be speaking to some of these workers in the informal sector as well as the National Pensions Regulatory Authority to know what's the way forward as an authority as to whether they have a plan to help these informal sector to incorporate them into their day-to-day activity. We are looking into pensions now in the informal sector. We know the informal sector contributes 80% of the Ghanaian economy, right? But it appears most of them seem not to have interest in doing pensions. I would want to know, do you have any pension plans?
I have a pension plan, but for now, I am not into. But right now I have something that I'm doing small. I'm also thinking about my pension plan.
But what's motivated or inspired the decision for you to have that pension plan?
Yes, I know that from my sisters going, I cannot work. And as I cannot work, I need to also depend on something. So if I have the pension plan, I think when I am on my pension, I can have a little amount of money that I can use to support myself and my family.
Do you have any pension plan?
I have it because I've traveled around the world. I've got more insights on how important these things are. So it's very important to me. So if we begin to hammer on pension plans, people will begin to understand the need for pension plans.
It's part of the world called Ghana, or Africa to be precise. By reason of our interconnection with family members, my uncle, my aunt, and then at times we try to rely on kids and external family members because of their pension is not up generally. Unfortunately, when you come to informal sector, let's say as a pastor, if you permit me, I began Peace Chapel. So maybe that's what you were asking about your church. Yeah, but when you start a church, it's not your church, it's Jesus' church, right? And here you are a pastor, you have started a church, and maybe members begin to bless you, and you think it's going to be there forever, so you don't plan about tomorrow. The same way most people have. I used to be a young boy. Now I'm almost 60 years. I'm growing. And common sense and nature tells me that the kind of strength I used to have in my 20s, I don't have them now. And yeah, you know, as a Christian, we believe in God. I mean, our tomorrow is in the hands of God. Having said that, looking at the Bible, Jesus spoke about planning. As a matter of fact, the God who created us is the God of planning. Why? He first and foremost made the Garden of Eden before Adam and Eve were created. And here we are, superstition and other stuff. Oh, but something that you can do, God won't do for you. If you don't use your brain to think about your tomorrow, you are not going to blame God. So, those who are preachers, yes, I believe in God. Tomorrow is in the hands of God. But please, don't leave everything in the hands of God. Not at all. Why are you using your brain for? He created us in his own image to be planners. So let us think and plan about tomorrow. If not, you are going to be regret if you live to see tomorrow.
Me pese me bisa o wajin kakra fa pension won ti sen.
Yan kasemu no aha no ye moa bi e ma yan kase ye drivers no ayi ni mu ye ho no. Say week bia no
I don't contribute anything to any company as pension contribution, but as drivers, when there is an unforeseen circumstance, we contribute some monies together to help the individual. Many are of the view that pensions are meant for the formal sector, but the National Pensions Regulatory Authority says it has rolled out plans to sensitize Ghanaians on pensions.
Indeed, I wouldn't even say it is the most important, but it is one of the most important areas of our functions. That is to bring pension to the informal sector of the society. You're right, our society is largely informal, and so to have a pension system which does not cover the informal sector will not be adequate at all. And so the act under which we act, which is Act 76, is the National Pensions Act, gives room for informal sector workers to participate in pensions, even to the extent of about 35% of their income into pensions tax-free. And that is one area that as regulators we are concentrating, because with the formal sector it's mandatory anyway, so that will be done as a matter of course. But the informal sector is voluntary, and therefore it requires a lot of education and sensitization. And there's a misconception out there, because up until 2010, pension was only for the formal sector. So that misconception has really sunk deep into the consciousness of the people. And therefore, you will need to educate and sensitize them that this time around, pension is for all, whether you are in the formal or the informal sector. So it is one very strong area that we are concentrating on. And indeed, most of the schemes that we have encouraged and registered are in the informal sector. So we are very, very deeply involved in the informal sector. Yes, it is a challenging area, because in terms of penetration, people work on individualized basis, and therefore you have to approach them individually. It is also very difficult for people in the informal sector to leave their shops, their markets, to come to a sensitization center or to come to MPRA for that matter. So you have to take the education to where they are. So we have a system in place which we call the market activation, that our team will go to the marketplace, to the shops, to the very, very areas of their operation, and educate and sensitize them. So market activation is one very strong area. We also have what we call a pension clinic, that we will take a van and go to the areas where they operate mostly. And then we will ask them, or they will come and ask us questions, or we will educate them and give them the kind of understanding that they want. Sometimes we also use dramatization. We work with a number of companies, Ghana Dance Ensemble, for example, to dramatize for them to know that pension is also for them. Just recently, we organized a National Pensions Awareness Week, which was launched in Koforidua. We went to Sunyani to sensitize cocoa farmers, because now we have a pension scheme for cocoa farmers. Kumasi, we went to Cultural Center, and then we brought a number of workers there, informal sector workers with us. We went to Winneba, we went to Tema. So we've been across the country, and the emphasis is on informal sector. So our education and sensitization program targets these people where they work, in places where we can get their attention. I would like to appeal to our informal sector workers. The misconception that pension is only for the formal sector is a thing of the past. Since 2010, we have personal pension plans and group personal pension plans that are available for any Ghanaian who works in any setting, formal or informal, but mostly in the informal sector, because it is voluntary, that people need to sign up, because it is not every time that you have the strength to wake up in the morning through the hustle and bustle of practicing your trade. A time will come where you will be, you'll retire. A time will come where you cannot go about to your normal duties, and the situation where you have to rely on your children is now becoming a thing of the past. So you need to save for a rainy day, so that when you are no longer able to apply your trade, then you can fall back on them and then have a retirement income security. So every Ghanaian needs to sign up on a pension.
It's clear that most of these informal sector workers seem not to have much knowledge when it comes to pension plans. Some are yet to plan, but the National Pension Regulatory Authority seem to have some plans to incorporate these informal sector workers into their day-to-day activity. For Joy Business, James Ishen.
You're still watching The Marketplace. We're taking a short break. We'll be right back. Just stay with us. And welcome back. Now, the Bank of Ghana has partnered an international firm, Gisik and Devrent, to pilot a general-purpose central bank digital currency in Ghana, West Africa. The firm is providing the technology and developing the solution adapted to Ghana's requirements, which will be tested in a trial phase with banks, payment service providers, merchants, consumers, and other relevant stakeholders. But what more do we know about the ECD? Well, the country manager of Azar Finance, Nana Yao Owusu Banahine, joins us in studio for more clarity on this. Nana Yao, we're grateful that you could join us. From where you sit as a country manager, help us understand your appreciation of where we are currently regarding the ECD, fundamentals.
Okay, thank you very much. I think where we are currently is the Bank of Ghana has come back to us to communicate in terms of their intention to bring ECD into the country, and then they want to start a pilot process. Some stakeholder engagements has been done, which has clearly given the scope of what the ECD will be entailed. So for me, I think that's the stage that we are yet. We are not done the general operationalization. I think the key thing that one of the reasons that I'm here is to try and share more light from the side of how it will benefit the ordinary Ghanaian.
Indeed, because there's so much, misinformation regarding ECD transactions, cross-border trade. Where does ECD sit actually when it comes to cross-border trading platforms, not just in Ghana but the sub-region?
So ECD is a digital, central bank digital currency. So it's a digital version of our printed currency. ECD is something that is gaining momentum. There are certain countries who had the ideas in the 90s to bring on digital currencies, but I think it's getting more momentum because of new developments in what we call the currency spaces. There are cryptocurrencies and other things coming up. So ECD is a strong response from the central banks, and its relevance is that it creates an enable environment to liberalize the payments ecosystem, to make it more resilient, and then open it for easier transaction settlement, a more reliable platform, and also a currency that is backed by the central bank. Its relations to cross-border payments is very relevant. Trying to make payments outside your country, not just Ghana, globally is a difficult thing because there are several intermediaries between some of these transactions. with a digital currency, which will be in a wallet in every country, means that you can always move funds immediately. Now, when you talk about cross-border payments, certain countries have already taken the steps.
Exactly.
You're looking at G20, even South Africa is partnering with some of the Southern Asian countries.
Nigeria has even started.
Yeah, so Nigeria started with e-Naira, but in terms of cross-border, they are trying, so everybody will have its own CBDC. So we have our ECD, Nigeria's e-Naira, which are on different platforms. The key goal that most of these countries are taking is from an interoperability perspective.
Exactly.
So for instance, if Ghana decides to create a common platform with Nigeria, where we can easily exchange our e-Naira with the ECD, then it liberalizes this ecosystem of transfers in Nigeria and also transfers from Nigeria into Ghana. It is one of the impediments of trade within the ecosystem, because we have the AFTA and everything in place. And this is what everybody's looking at, to try and create a certain level of interoperable platform for independent CBDCs to come together and be able to do cross-border transactions.
But of course, there could be some competitors to this field. We're having cryptocurrency in this particular. Help us draw the line regarding ECD, cryptocurrencies, and fiat currencies and its implications on cross-border trade.
So fiat currency, the digital version is the ECD. So technically, they are the same, right? And you can use both of them for exchange. The cryptocurrency is private, let me use that word, in the sense that the central banks don't have control over it. As you know, central banks control the monetary policies of the country. Central banks don't have control over it. In recent times, you heard about the Squid Games, right? And there was a cryptocurrency created for the Squid Games. And then when people just send their money to buy
a huge turnover.
They cash out, and then now people can't retrieve their funds again. So you can't trust it. So the difference between a cryptocurrency and the ECD or a central bank digital currency, that you can trust the central bank digital. They are not going anywhere. They are in there, and then the information is centralized. Your data is more protected. So yes, cryptocurrencies have its relevance, but I think for key business transactions that will be executed within the country on a legal basis, the ECD actually creates a more liberalizing environment.
Let's now end with Azar Finance, your company, of course, because we do know that you also center yourself around most of these turnovers. Help us understand where you situate on this.
Yes, so let me give you who we are. So Azar Finance is a global fintech company. What we've done is that we are creating a global back office, which one will create the necessary compliance and risk framework, the necessary technology infrastructure, and also operational efficacy to drive payment, FX, and liquidity for financial institutions and multinationals across the world. Currently, we operate in 115 countries. We have deep knowledge in terms of currency operations, even blockchain technology and everything across the world. So we are keen to work with regulators and key partners to make this thing very successful.
And I'm grateful that you could join us, country manager of Azar Finance, helping us understand the nuances of the ECD. That's how we end this edition of The Marketplace. I'm Charles Ide. For more news, please log on to myjoyonline.com. Many thanks for watching. Enjoy the rest of our programs.